Hey everyone, it's Rob Ryder, and I'm sure that in the last week you've seen some version of this, play out where Bill Barr is saying the election was not stolen by fraud, and I haven't seen anything since the election that changes my mind on that, including 2,000 mules moving. Right? And he's supposed to be the Attorney General of the United States, and he says that, and everybody gets offended. But old Beanbag there, here he is, Beanbag Bob. He's, only telling the story up to the comma. And so let's see if we can finish a sentence for him. Because in actual fact, tell Bill Barr that fraud is not a crime, but conspiracy to defraud the United States is. And this is June 19th, 2022. And let's get into it a little bit. And I'm going to show you where all the devil's in the details. We're going to look at a bunch of details here. And hopefully you have an idea what to do with them. Because, I don't have that great of contacts. But I do have great information. But the best way to share it is like this, because if I just tried to tell you this stuff, you would never believe it. But when I show you their documents and say, well, it says it right here, you choose not to believe it, well, that's between you and God. It has nothing to do with me. So tell Bill Barr that fraud is not a crime. Right? Because if you go to Bouvier's Law Dictionary, the definition of fraud is it's a tort, which is a wrong, but it's not an offense, which is a crime. It's a tort. Unlawfully, designedly, and knowingly to appropriate the property of another without criminal intent. Fraud is not a crime. However, under 18 U.S.C. 371, which is the criminal code of the United States, conspiracy to commit offense, which is a crime, or to defraud the United States, which just now became a crime because it's been put into this law. If two or more persons conspire either to commit any offense against the United States or to defraud the United States or any agency thereof in a manner or for any purpose, and one or more of such persons do any act to affect the object of the conspiracy, each shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both. And so this would include all Esquires. They're the fucking conspirators. Now, they have conspirators working with them that may not be Esquires, but the Esquires for sure are the conspirators because they run the court system. And at the end of the day, in our system, everything funnels down to the courts, and they have the last say. Don't care what the Constitution says. We're not following it. Just watch what they do. The court has the last say. So that's where we are in America. Well, actually, the United States, where we should be. Well, we're not actually in the United States. We find ourselves in the United States of America, which is King George's jurisdiction. Right? That's the thing that went bankrupt. The United States of America. Not the United States. Or not the United States of America, which is the thing that was created by the Articles of Confederation, where it says in the first article, the style of Confederacy shall be the United States of America. And that's what's on the money. And I just heard Benjamin Fulford, if you've ever heard of him, he just said this week that, that the dollar itself is not really being affected by this ongoing recession or whatever you want to call it, inflation. It's almost like it's decoupled, right? And I say, well, okay, that's because they're two different jurisdictions, right? The thing that owes all the money is the United States of America, which borrowed from the United States, which is the Union of the United States of America and the United States of America. It's a possibility. So let's get on with this. Hey, I am Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Retluski, U.S. Army veteran. If you're a veteran and you don't ever let them call you Mister. So, oh, no, I'm Staff Sergeant. We got to use titles. But I'm also known as Rob Ryder. My email address is courtofrecord@aol.com. And I'm going to show, as we go through these things, and first I'll show you some, actual defects, and you can say, yep, that's wrong. Rob Ryder's correct, that's wrong. Right? That the real problem isn't so much in D.C., although there is a problem there. The real problem is down at your township hall or city hall or wherever it is that you're supposed to have been registered as a qualified elector. Because it's all about registration of qualified electors into the proper election precinct. And I may go into this more in another video, but I'll just say this part now. So like in Michigan, the county can be a local government, right? So it can be the same thing as what I would call the township is, right? Because the county is, by Michigan law, is either it's a state subdivision of the state or it's a local government. And townships and cities are normally what we would consider local government in Michigan. And then they have election precincts in them, but they actually call them voter precincts. They don't necessarily call them election precincts. But the law I'm talking about does call them election precincts. So it's like, it's a different jurisdiction. But in my county, then, we have a board of county supervisors, and I'm in the 4th district. Well, I say that's as easily a precinct of the local government county as it is to say that I'm in precinct 1 of Oakfield Township, Kent County. So in actual fact, it could be that, there's 2 different jurisdictions and they have us going to the one when we should be in the other. And that the one where your county commissioner now has a duty to you directly, instead of going to a county board meeting and, being the public, to go to the county commissioner as a properly qualified elector in his jurisdiction to tell him what you need done. Right? Because we're not properly registered, we're in the wrong jurisdiction. So I'm going to see if that's how it works. But I want to show you a bunch of things here, so let's get on with this. Hang on. Okay, so a quick stop at the Constitution. Not a bad place to start. Section 1, the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. Well, Trump and Biden, everybody, they call themselves the president of the United States, not the United States of America. Right? So just remember, it says president of the United States of America. And then he's going to go on and hold his office and so forth. And if we get down here to, now he's going to take an oath to do that. Right? Before he entered the execution of his office, he shall take an oath or affirmation. I do solemnly swear I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. Forgive me on that. Jeepers. Got a lot of pollen in the air still. Anyways, he's the President of the United States, right? That's the office. So he's the President of the United States of America, and he's going to hold the office of President of the United States. Which isn't any different than if you watched my last video, which you'll find all my videos on Rob Ryder. You just hit video link, and it'll have them in order. Should be. This is like sorted by newest to oldest. Sheriff Darleaf. Don't sue Esquires, arrest them for treason. And in there, I was showing this lawsuit that has been filed by the sheriff's office trying to get a civil judgment against various officials, right, for election fraud. Instead of, doing what a sheriff should do and say, well, that's a crime, I'm arresting your ass. That isn't what he's doing, right? Because he's part of the problem, because he hasn't taken proper oath of office. Yada, yada, yada. He's just something to look at. It doesn't mean he couldn't. He just hasn't, so, call it as it is. He isn't who he says he is. So then the President of the United States of America is going to hold the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now, if you look how it is, there's no place to put a name at the front, and there's no so help me God at the end. Let's look at it. Hey, let me do that last little part again. So before he enters on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath or affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that's what the President of the United States of America is supposed to do. Which was no different than, as they showed in this video, that Sheriff Darleaf was one entity, and the other entity was the office of the sheriff of whatever county he's in, and that together they were the sheriff. So this is the same type of setup. You know, the president's the big sheriff in town. So that's the oath they're supposed to take. And as you can see, there's no place to put the name after I, and there's no so help me God at the end. But now let's listen to it be done by the last two people who claim to be president. All right, so pay attention.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Okay. That was Trump's turn. How about Biden? What did he do?
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I,
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
that
That's
I will
enough.
faithfully...
All right, it goes to the end. He says, "So help me God." So there's at least two defects that were put into the oath by the man giving the oath, administering the oath, who's an Esquire, John Glover Roberts. Right? Is that right, John? Yeah. Well, Roberts, Chief Justice. He's an Esquire. So there's one Esquire in a conspiracy. I wonder if there's any more. And just a quick stop at the 6th article, where it says, "This Constitution, laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties, yada, 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 are the supreme law of the land. And judges in every state shall be bound thereby, and anything in the Constitution, laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding." And then senators, representatives, before mentioned, and members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office of public trust under the United States. And in the video I did last week, I showed where they showed that the sheriff is a state officer. So the sheriff should take this oath that they're talking about for the 6th article. But so should all senators, representatives, the legislature, the governor, the attorney general, secretaries of state, the judges, the justices, the magistrates, civil officers, by whatever name they're calling themselves, the mayor, police chief. If you're claiming an office in the government, of a government in the United States, or a level of government, because it's all one government, it just has different levels. You got local, state, and national. But it's all one cohesive government, and it's all tied together with a gold for its flag. Okay, well, then they're supposed to have taken an oath, and I know most of you watching my videos have seen this many, many times, and you'll see it many more because I'll never fail to show it, right, that the first law enacted after the ratification of the Constitution that we just read Article 6 out of says, first of all, that the name is an act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths. Right now, this is the first law after ratification of the Constitution, and that the oath or affirmation required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the form following. I state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. All right, so that's what Nancy Pelosi needs to take, Chuck Schumer, your governor, the judge that's sitting there, telling you that you have a traffic ticket and want to take your money, right? The foreclosure judge, the child support judge, all these people are supposed to have taken this oath. The prosecutor, attorneys, clerks, all of them, and none of them have. Right? Well, this applies, to everybody in the 6 articles. That would be state officers also. But they went further and they took this out, plucked it out, and they put it into the United States Code, talking about the states in Title IV, right? And the 101 Every member of state legislature, executive, judicial officer of the state, that'd be a sheriff, shall, before he proceeds to execute duties of his office, take an oath in the following form. I, state your name, Dar Leaf, do solemnly swear I'll support the Constitution of the United States. Now, Dar Leaf is probably not his full legal name, so that would be incorrect. Your full legal name, Robert Allen Retlewski. No middle initials, no nicknames, right? This is your identity. But then it goes on to say, such oath may be administered by any person who, by law of the state, is authorized to administer the oath of office, and the person so administering such oath shall cause a record of certificate therefore to be made in the same manner as by law of the state he is directed to record or certify the oath of office. Okay, so that would be anybody who has a gold fringed flag. Wherever that flag is, it's tied to somebody who has the authority to execute an oath of office. So that could be a pastor at a church. Right? It could be the clerk at the township hall. So lots of places it could be, but the problem is nobody's taking it. And then they have to make a record of it, because you need to be able to go and get it. So I want a record to see the sheriff's oath that he took to satisfy the 6th article of the Constitution. But somebody else that could take these oaths is like the patriotic associations of veterans, right? The American Legion, Disabled American Vets, VFW, right? They all have gold fringed flags. Their problem is they haven't properly registered their entity with the state. I did a video on that a little bit ago, right? So they really don't have any authority because they're not doing what they need to do to have the authority they've been granted under their charter. And the reason for that is they're listed as Esquires, which is a crown agent, an enemy of the United States. Instead, they should arrest them and have them spill the beans. What do I need to do to fix this? So, hey, somebody asked Bill BARR. Well, Bill, if fraud's not a crime, how about conspiracy to defraud the United States? Is that a crime? Is 18 U.S.C. 371 a crime, Bill? Would it be a crime to deny the United States whatever it required by the Constitution? Because that's exactly what's happening. We don't have any Republican form of government because nobody's taken a proper oath to do that. And there's no democracy talked about in the there's no democracy talked about in the Constitution. Just a Republican form of government. Hey, because we're here, I'm going to talk about this real quick. I mentioned these things in my last video, right? So this is the Michigan election law. And this would be MCL 168-495, where it talks about registration application must contain all the following. So before I get into it, right, there's supposed to be an application, someplace that you would fill out that has all these attributes on it, right? And if you were to fill this out, if you were qualified to be an elector, which has its certain things, like you got to be over 18, have lived in the precinct or the township or whatever they want to call it for a length of time, a month or something like that, right? Resident of the state, those things, right? Then you're qualified as an elector, but you're not yet registered. And this would be how you would register as an elector in the United States. And because we haven't done this, there really is not anybody in the United States, right? We may be in the United States of America. We've been shanghaied there by the Esquires, but that's a private society existing inside the United States, but it's not the United States. It's the democracy. It's subservient to the United States. If we had done this, we would be electors. But because we haven't done it, then even though we vote, it's not qualified because the only people that can vote are electors. So they'll take your paperwork and run it through, but hey, none of this shit's any good because you're not an elector. You're not registered in the jurisdiction to vote for the president. So, there should be a document that has all these things on it. So I'm going to show it in my next video. I'll just do it on this. That, take these attributes and go look at all the different forms that they give you that you could use and show you that, well, they don't have all of these things on there. And then they do things like this. The residence address of the elector, including street and number. Okay, well, when I write my address, I put a number and then the street. This is saying street and number. And there's actually a form that's how it is, for the last, it's street and number. But that doesn't mean that the number has anything to do with my mailing address number. This could be a lot number. Like they've taken the township and they've broken it into all these different lots. And it has a number. Right? Because nobody really needs to know where your house is. This is how you would maintain your privacy. There'd just be some street with a lot number. That, those lot numbers are kept by the local jurisdiction. So, outside of the sheriff, there's nobody else that knows what your address is. Or something like that. Okay, so it's really important that, I'm sure that every state has something like this. Now, you go a little bit further, and they're going to talk about, well, we're not quite there. So the next one is registration of electors, which is what we're trying to do. Duties of the Secretary of State. This is what the Secretary of State is supposed to have done for electors there, Sheriff Darleaf. It shall be the duty of the Secretary of State to make the proper forms for use in the registration of electors. Would you please make them give some? Right? And recommended the use of the same to the several clerks of the township, cities, and villages. So they're not going to mandate that they have to use them. Now, there's all sorts of things they mandate you got to use this form and so forth, but they're specifically excluding this from being mandated. You just recommend that they do. Right? And instructing the several township, city, and village clerks in the state as to the requirements of this act. I bet you, if you go and there, Sheriff, and you were to take this to your township, wherever you voted at, or city, and showed the election clerk, which is usually the township clerk, and say, where's the form that meets all this criteria? They're not going to have one. Right? And so you can't register. So apparently the clerk didn't know that was a requirement, because they're going to say, well, you're already in the system as a voter. Because, you are in there to vote, but you never, as a qualified elector, registered, and those are the only votes that count. And so there's nobody, in the entire United States, well, there's probably a few, because they're the ones making the decisions. But by and large, all the rest of us are not, in the United States. They got somebody sitting in all these places like a trustee, and they're one person deep or something like that. Application for registration. You see, this is different. The other one was registration application. Now, this is application for registration. And this is, to register to vote. Not register as an elector, but register to vote. So first you have to register to be an elector. Then you have to register to vote. There's 2 registrations. How difficult is that? Voter registration. No, that's second. You got to register as an elector first. And then one other section I want to show. This is electors register in the local government, right? So meat and potatoes section in this law on this particular section on elector registration is this. MCL 168-499. Register of elector. An elector entitled to registration in an election precinct. So where are you being registered? In an election precinct. Well, an election precinct, we can just stop real quick, go look at what that means. The words election precinct as used in this act shall mean a political subdivision. Okay. Now, a political subdivision is the same as a local government. Right? So am I in a subdivision of the county as a political subdivision, or am I in a precinct of my township where the township is a political subdivision, but not the precinct? The precinct is just part of a political subdivision. I don't know. I just know, hey, it doesn't have to be, like if I was looking at my voter card, it says I'm in Precinct 1 of Oakfield Township. But I could be in Precinct 4 of Kent County. Or of County of Kent. or maybe it's just called Kent. Whatever one my 4th District township commissioner is, county commissioner is, the commissioner for. Okay, and then it goes on to say, elector title registration may become registered in the precinct by applying in person and signing the registration application before the clerk or assistant clerk of the township, city, village in which the precinct is located. All right, so we're talking again about that first registration form, which I don't believe I mentioned, but it talks about there being an. Well, let's just go back a look. Just soon show it than have to guess at it, right? A place for the elector to sign and certify to the truth of the statements on the application. Well, that would be an acknowledgement. You're going to acknowledge the truth of your statements, right? So the clerk has got to be able to give you an oath, which is what they're going to be talking about, right? So the application you have has to have a place, where you go, fill out the application, and you take an oath before the clerk. When you go to vote registration, they'll have you take an oath. Right? Power to administer oaths and to swear persons as to the truth of their statements contained in an application. That's what I'm talking about. Right? The clerk has to give you an oath, and there has to be somewhere on the form for that to been done. And, if they're going to give you an oath, they got to put their seal on it. So now we're into a whole, little ceremony that has to be done to make it official. And none of that shit gets done. A clerk or assistant clerk shall not accept a fee from an elector applying for registration, either for the registering of the elector or for taking acknowledgement of the application, or taking of the acknowledgement on the application. That's the part I'm talking about. It's got an acknowledgement, requires an oath given by the clerk. And when all that's done proper, well, now you're on your way to being a registered qualified elector. The clerk, immediately after receiving the registration or change of address of the elector, shall prepare a voter identification card of the elector. The clerk shall also prepare and send a corrected voter identification card to the elector affected by the change, United States Representative, State Senatorial, State Representative, or County Commissioner, District, or Precinct. Right? County Commissioner, District, or Precinct. So you have a district, but it's the same thing called a precinct. Or is there a subdivision of the 4th district that I'm in that is the precinct? I don't know. I'm saying that this could be it right here, that, the 4th district is my precinct. Not Oakfield Township. That's the wrong jurisdiction. Right? It's the county commissioner, 4th district, Kent County, is my precinct. The clerk shall forward by first-class mail the voter identification card to the elector at the elector's registration address. The voter identification card shall contain the name and address of the registrant and the United States Representative, State Senatorial, State Representative, or County Commissioner, District, and Precinct, County Commissioner, District, and Precinct, in which the registrant is an elector. But what it doesn't include is your school district, which when you get a voter identification card in Michigan, your school district is listed. But that's not on here anywhere, so that card they're giving you is not the one they're talking about. Right? If the original voter identification card is returned to the clerk by post office as non-deliverable, the clerk shall reject the registration and send the individual a notice of rejection. So this is where you can't necessarily use your residence address, if it's street and number, as the mailing address, that you have a different mailing address. This is the thing you're using now to say it's your residence address. Right? 10955, 14 Mile Road, Rockford, Michigan, 49341. That's my mailing address. I don't live anywhere near Rockford. But I would say, okay, well, that's 14 Mile Road there, and if they want to say this is 10955, who am I to argue? Well, now I have to, because apparently that's not what they're talking about. And yet they won't tell you what it is that they are talking about. And so I'm going to stop there, right? I don't want to make too long a video on Father's Day. By the way, happy Father's Day, especially to Lord God Almighty, all of his children, all of his children down here. sons of God and daughters of God trying to do the right thing, do the will of the Lord in the three-dimensional world. Well, if we're ever going to get her done, right, we need to get the devil out of the details, and the devil is all over the details, all the way down to the registration of electors at the very local level in the election precinct. So this doesn't have so much to do with the electors, appointed for the president, as much as the electors who really run the system. I mean, that's what puts you in the United States, is by being an elector, registered elector. Whether you vote or not is not, that's up to you. You want to vote? Well, then you have to go and register again to be a voter. But you have to have registered as an elector to be seen in the jurisdiction. And that's the part they're not doing. So, all right, we're supposed to register in an election precinct. Didn't say register in a township. It said register in an election precinct. And the election precinct then turns out to be a political subdivision. And so that's either the 4th District of Kent County or it's Oakfield Township. So maybe, the sheriff could go find out. Which one is it, Sheriff? But back to the original reason for being here, which was old Bill Barr, right? The election was not stolen by fraud. He's not lying, right? It was conspiracy to defraud the United States, which is the crime, because fraud's not a crime. But he's not saying that. He's playing Esquire, giving you a partial answer up to the comma, but not telling you the rest of the story. And that's an indication of everything that's wrong in the United States. And it starts with Esquires and their conspiracy to defraud the United States, which is an offense under 18 U.S.C. 371, conspiracy to commit offense or to defraud the United States. If 2 or more persons, Bill Barr and the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, conspire either to commit any offense against the United States or to defraud the United States or any agency thereof in any manner or for the purposes of, or purposes and one or more such persons do any act to affect the object of the conspiracy, he shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years of both. So the act that they both did is they avoided taking the oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. And any properly registered, oath-bound constitutional sheriff could arrest them on the spot. So how about we think about that for a while? Okay. Tell Bill Barr that fraud is not a crime, but conspiracy to defraud the United States is. 18 U.S.C. 371. Every good private should remember that. That's like a 3rd general order. Conspiracy to commit offense and defraud the United States. That's what's happening. It's 18 U.S.C. 371. That's all I remember. Let's go look it up online, and then we can find out the rest. Right? That's all you got to remember. 18 U.S.C. 371. Conspiracy to commit offense or to defraud the United States. Okay, you all have a great day. See you now.